I refer to myself as a recovering engineer, got caught in the rain, and we were literally like dashing down the street. We had no umbrellas, no ponchos. Kahan jaye? We saw a door, opened it, ran inside. We were in the Museum of Sex.
Hi, and welcome to Travel Secrets. I'm Simona Terron, and I'm your host for a very interesting conversation today with I can't say interesting person because that just doesn't sound interesting enough for the kind of person she is. She's a fabulous storyteller. She has written across genres. We're talking cookbooks, we're talking culture, we're talking romance, short stories, memoirs, and even children's books. Please say hello to Monica Saigal Pide, who now goes by Monica Pide. Very, very warm welcome, Monica. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And since I jump genres, I also jump names. So I go by Monica Saigal now. So we'll keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. I
Yeah,
stand corrected.
thank you
And
for
yes,
having me.
it's an absolute pleasure to meet you, and I'm sure today's conversation is going to enlighten, educate, and entertain a lot of people in the travel world because all of those things are aspects of travel, right? I mean, there's romance, there's definitely food. It's all about culture. The little kid in us, we're kind of either healing our inner child or taking our inner child on vacation. And it's just all of these things that come through, and we hope to create memories, which is what memoirs are is pretty much about. So I just want to, before I continue, I can see two of your titles right behind you. Could you tell us,
Oh, thank
are
you.
these the ones that launched in 2024 in Feb and October? You had two titles released last year.
I did, and you did your research. I'm very grateful. Kiss in Kashmir released in, I think, February, Valentine's Day, and Papa's Butter Chicken actually came out in October, and we are eagerly awaiting its India release, which I'm hoping is going to be this year. So I'm very
And it
excited.
sounds adorable and delicious at the same time, which is your whole thing, right? Food writing is your jam. You've been a master in it. You've been teaching other people. You're a literary coach as well. Tell us a little bit about this, this love, and how did you manage to infuse it into your work?
So I have a very traditional Three Idiots story. You know, being a child who was born in Delhi, I was given three options of become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or marry rich. So I became an engineer, and now I refer to myself as a recovering engineer. So I worked in tech for a very long time, and I always felt like a part of my soul died every morning when I showed up. We used to call it the golden handcuffs. You were paid really well, but was that like I always questioned, is that my purpose on earth? And my purpose on earth, I believe, is telling stories, connecting people. Telling stories is how I understand the world, and I feel like that's how we relate to people. And so I gave away my golden handcuffs and my technical degree, and I have two masters, by the way, in technology because we are desi, teen degrees to chalti hain. And then I decided to write full time. And so since I've been writing for almost 18 years, I have 13 books. I have two more releasing this year. And by the grace of God, I've been able to write for many newspapers and magazines. And my first India magazine was actually Femina, which I was very proud of because I grew up reading Femina. And it was such a pleasure to work with Satya Saran and be featured in that. And so it's been a journey and a fun one. And why do I write about food, which is the number one question I get? So when I started writing, I was telling stories and they said, you really have to write about what you love. Well, okay, I'm Punjabi. My roots are Punjabi. It's all food, man. There's like nothing else. Subah ka khana, dopahr ka khana, raat ka khana, everything is khana. So that's how I started and that's where I am. So you can see with everything, the khana will pop up inevitably, no matter what I'm doing.
Next question is about, could the fact that you had this really unusual and super interesting background, which is you were born in Delhi, you've been raised in the Middle East, and now you're speaking to us from Washington, D.C. So how
Yes.
does that tie into all of this?
So it's interesting, having lived in so many different places, being with people from so many different cultures, backgrounds, religions, the economic background is different, the status are different, the way of thinking is different. The one thing that ties us all together is food. I believe culinary diplomacy is the most important. Breaking bread together is the most kindest, comforting way of knowing someone. I've seen it again and again. One of my most memorable experiences was at an Indian restaurant where I was invited to talk to a group of war journalists. And, we were sitting down, and at the time they were in the Middle East. And every time a dish came, anything, I mean, the chef could have served a glass of water and they would be like, "This is the best water we've ever had. And this is the best chicken." And I was like, "What is going on?" And they're like, "You don't understand. When we are reporting in war zones, that last bite that we're taking could literally be the last thing that we're eating." And so we learn to appreciate food and we appreciate everything that we are given. And the conversation just, it started with food and then it opened up into everything else. But it was such a neutral way to just get into the conversation. And because it's something that ties us, what unites us and ties us is a lot bigger than what divides us. And that's one of the things my travels have taught me.
I think that's a very beautiful and articulate way to put it, unsurprising it completely, because the whole act of breaking bread, it's definitely so much of trust involved. You're literally sharing
Absolutely.
also resources. In the old days, sharing your food with somebody else is the ultimate sacrifice for welcoming a stranger into your home, and you're giving away something that is yours. And I think that essence has stayed even in today's day and age when we're not
Oh,
exactly where food isn't scarce, but across
100%. I mean, and
cultures.
as Indian, we were raised with Atiti Devo Bhava.
Yes.
When people come, we treat them with love and kindness. And how is it? What's the first thing that gets asked? Thanda lenge, chai lenge, kya lenge? That's
Good.
when people come in, and that still stays. And I
Absolutely.
just love that.
Now I want to ask you, since you do this through your work in your books, etc., as somebody who has traveled so much, so extensively and explored and vetted and said, okay, no, 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 this is what they say online, but it's not true IRL. So I'm going to ask you for a couple of your secrets because this is travel
Sure.
secrets. Um, so let's start with the apple, the big apple. Okay, so tell us about New York. Is there any insider tips, the travel secrets that you want to tell our listeners, our viewers, that they cannot find anywhere else?
I mean, there are things. So let's be honest, there are a lot of things you will find everywhere. And I would be remiss not to mention that because they'll be like, "Oh, she's telling us about New York, but she didn't mention this big thing." So we start with food because I am a food
Yeah.
writer. So, hottest reservation in New York right now is Vikas Khanna's bungalow. Basically, you take nostalgia and luxury and wonderful food and put it all together. And he's created an experience that you will never forget.
Hmm.
Second, again, food, because food writer. Sema, which means actually victory in Tamil. It's a Tamilian restaurant which has a Michelin star. The food is unbelievable. I mean, and I have traveled all over India eating. This guy will give everybody a run for their money. I always say, if there's a red carpet rolled out, Vijay Kumar is going to lead that red carpet with the food at Sema. So we have to start with food. Thank you very much for tolerating that. Now, on to New York, the things that you don't want to miss. So, I wanted to pick two things that people wouldn't traditionally think of when they're visiting New York. You'll be like,
Hmm.
okay, we'll go to Times Square, we'll do this, we'll go to the Rockefeller Center and stuff. There are two places that are my favorite. When we started this conversation, you were talking about your inner child and adulting and all of that. And I think adulting is very overrated. So, the first place to go to New York is called the Museum of Ice Cream. It is so much fun. You can go and try different types of ice creams. There's a slide. You can get an ice cream hot dog. And there's actually a big basin that's filled with pink sprinkles that are plastic sprinkles, and you can actually jump into it.
Wow.
So I didn't realize that is also about food, but so forgive me. But it is one of the most fun experiences you can have with your family. The second one is a place that I actually ran into because a friend and I got caught in the rain and we were literally like dashing down the street. We had no umbrellas, no ponchos. We saw a door, opened it, ran inside. We were in the Museum of Sex. which exists in New York, which is quite interesting. I mean, it sounds risque, and of course, there's all kinds of
It's a
stuff, but
different kind of hunger, so why not?
it's different. It documents the human desire. It's got an amazing exhibit right now. I think it's called the Carnival, and it talks about human desire in such a beautiful way. It's a beautiful exhibit. It's worth going and exploring because I mean, come on, we're from the land of the Kama Sutra. This stuff should
Hmm.
be things that we can look at. So there's a travel secret. Look up the Museum of Sex and then
And
go
then
have
go
some
get
ice
ice cream.
cream. Indeed.
I love it. Hot and cold. Oh, yeah. Well, okay, that was New York. What about, I mean, because I guess living in the US and being exposed to all of this firsthand, like for people who are traveling, say from India, it's always recommendations from fellow Indians living abroad that we trust a little more. Now, what would you say about where you live right now, which is in DC, or in North Virginia? So you're
In
in,
Northern Virginia, yeah.
yeah.
So whenever someone says to you, "Oh, I live in the DC metro area,"
Uh-huh.
ask them what that means. So,
Uh-huh.
these metro areas like New York Metro, DC Metro, we have what are called bedroom communities.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Virginia is considered a bedroom community. What that means is we live and survive in the suburbs, but we commute to DC, which is the central,
Ah,
which is the capital. We go
the
there
hub.
for
Yeah.
working. So a lot of people do that.
Mhm.
DC is a train ride. So from where I live, DC is about 9 miles, 20 minutes in the train. So we
Okay,
call it a
that's not
bedroom
bad.
community. So in DC, some of the fun things to do, of course, you can go and look at all of the monuments, the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument. You can see the White House, you can see the Capitol, which is all lovely. But a little bit of behind the scenes that I'd like to tell you, a fun way to see these monuments.
Hmm.
DC actually has a double-decker pink bus, and they serve tea. It's called tea around town. So it's literally like you can have your afternoon tea with
On
your
a moving
canapes and
bus.
you're on a moving bus. So
Oh,
you can
yeah.
have your tea and your canapes and things like that. And it takes you around Washington where you can see the monuments. So for instance, it'll take you to Lincoln Memorial. And why is the Lincoln Memorial famous? For many, many reasons. But of course, that's where Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. And I think that was in 63.
Oh.
And then there's a reflecting pool there, which is perfect for your Instagram feed because you want a place where you can take amazing pictures. The second choice actually will surprise you and delight you, and I'm also going to be showing my age. One of the first movies I remember watching when I was very young was The Exorcist. You remember that?
Oh my God.
That
I'm
terribly
struggle to forget it. So yes, I remember
Yes.
it.
So at the end of The Exorcist, there are these crazy stairs, the Exorcist stairs. Believe it or not, they're actually in Washington, D.C. They're in Georgetown. And it's one
Oh,
of the most photographed places, which people don't normally associate The Exorcist with, Georgetown and being in D.C.
yeah.
So the trick is you go there, if you can go up and down the stairs without, running out of breath, you're in great physical shape because you'll
Really?
see people doing that. It's very hard, like to run those steps. But then also, if you're like me with childhood nightmares from The Exorcist, you're like, oh my Lord, those are the stairs.
These
So
stairs.
those,
Yeah.
these stairs. And then the third one, there are actually two, if you'd give me the time to speak. One is the Spy Museum. But the fun thing about the Spy Museum is if you book far enough in advance, they actually give you a little, it's sort of like a treasure hunt where you can sign up and they'll hide things around the city and they give you clues and you can go around and find things, which is a really fun thing to
That's
do. So I've done it
amazing.
with
How
my
many
boys.
hours does it take? Like, is it up to you? How many
It's
hours?
up to you. I think it's like a couple of hours, 2, 3 hours, and they
Perfect.
don't do it all the time, but you have to just keep an eye on the site. I've done it with my boys, and it's a lot of fun. They'll give you a walkie-talkie and things so you can actually pretend that, you're
You're James
James
Bond
Bond.
or,
Right.
yeah, Gemma
And
Bond.
then the second one is very unusual. It's called the Mansion on O Street. And it's a house, it's a row house with multiple levels and things like that. Not many people have heard of it. It's got like 100 rooms. And it's basically like, do you know what an escape room is?
Oh, yeah. They're big right
Okay,
now in
so
Mumbai.
so it's like an escape room meets Alice in Wonderland. Think of it like that. So you go in, it's got hundreds of rooms with crazy paraphernalia. Like it's got 70 guitars that are personally signed by famous people. It's got stuff from the Beatles. It's got the outfit that Audrey Hepburn wore in My Fair Lady. A lot of stuff is on sale, and also like Bruce Springsteen has stayed there. I think even Paul McCartney has stayed there. But it's a little bit crazy for the escape room parts. It's like I believe there are some like 70 or 90 secret doors. And if you
Did you
can
say
even find
70 or
three
90, like
doors,
70?
yeah, there are
That's
secret
a
doors.
lot.
It's insane. If you can
Do you ever
find like
leave?
even three doors, you're like, oh my God, I've succeeded. So this is not something typically when you hear a Washington, D.C., it's more like Smithsonian museums ja sakte hain, you know. And by the way, many of the museums in D.C. are free. So you
Yes.
could do the Smithsonian museums or stuff like that, or get yourself
No.
on a double-decker bus,
Uh-huh. And have
have the
tea.
lovely tea and the canapes and look at all of the memorials. Go to the Lincoln Memorial, go to the reflecting pool, take a picture, and then go and eat. DC has some amazing,
But
fun
first, run
food
up and down the
places.
stairs so that you prepare your
You
appetite.
need to get your appetite. And then come see us in Virginia. We have the best tacos, believe it or not, in Northern Virginia. There's a restaurant called Taco Bamba. It's a chain. It's one of my favorite places. And I always say if loving a taco is wrong, I don't want to be right. Their taco is so amazing. We actually did an event with them for my butter chicken book, and the chef came up with a butter chicken taco, and it was like an instant success. I mean, it's
I can
basically butter
imagine it.
chicken
My mouth's
inside,
watering
yeah,
just
in a
thinking about
taco.
it. It makes
You
sense.
can't go
Butter
wrong.
chicken taco, duh.
Yeah, and what's there not to love? So that is amazing. And DC is such a lovely place. It's it's very warm compared to some of the other cities. It's I always describe Washington DC as it's like somebody took New York and gave it a big hug, and
That's a
it
beautiful way
became
to describe it.
became
Someone took New
Washington.
York and gave it a big hug. And that's what DC is. That's a beautiful way to tie it in together. Your author is showing. Okay.
My author is showing, yes, indeed.
Oh wow. I just feel like I virtually traveled with you in all of this in an Instagram reel because you've painted very vivid pictures and I'm excited to, hear from people who follow up on these beautiful secrets. And it's
I
been
would
an
love that.
absolute joy. Thank you so much, Monica. As for our Mumbai connection, our journalism connection, our Times of India connection because of Femina and Satya Saran. I just feel really closer and I feel like I have got the insider info. So is everyone watching, but I feel special. So thank you for this fabulous conversation. But my last request would be before I go, because it feels a little incomplete without that. I just talked about our little connections. What about some secrets of someplace closer to home? Like, I mean, kiss from Kashmir, a kiss for Kashmir. That would be the best way to end this conversation with a kiss for Kashmir. Give us some insider tips for the paradise on earth.
Absolutely. So this is the latest book that I've written, and it's in the market. It's A Kiss in Kashmir. And I mean, I did a lot of research for this. Now, growing up, I have a lot of nostalgia for Kashmir, of course, with all of the Yash Raj movies, and I'm a Yash Raj kid, that whole genre.
Absolutely. Dal
And I
Lake and the
hadn't,
houseboats and
right,
all
and I
of
hadn't
that.
done a love story. And I thought we have to do a love story about Kashmir. And I did a lot of research, with the artisans of Kashmir, with everything that's going on, with everything that's opening up. Travel and tourism now to Kashmir has increased considerably, and it's lovely. So the two things that I learned many, many things, but a couple of things that I learned that I absolutely loved. A lot, almost everything featured in the book is real, except there's only one place in the book that isn't real. So one of the places that's mentioned in the book, of course, Kashmir, Dal Lake, houseboat. There has to be a houseboat. So the houseboat that's mentioned is Sukoon. And the reason I worked with the owner is not only Sukoon, not only does it mean peace and tranquility, they follow the Sufi principle of interconnectedness, and they're very, very particular about being sustainable and about the environment. So Sukoon is one of the only houseboats that has a biotank. They don't release any crap into the lake, not literally nothing. No plastic is allowed on the houseboats. So they are just amazing. So that's one of the secrets about Kashmir. Go stay in Sukoon. It's amazing. The second thing is, and I didn't know about this, when you start to research, it's like a rabbit hole. And you go down and you're like, how did I not know about this? So I learned about this place called Killa Rus, which is a monolithic structure in Kashmir, and it looks like a building with like seven doors.
Did you say
And
the
it's
name
called
again? Kelarus? How
it's
do you
like Killa Rus. And so
Kelarus?
literally it's like Rus, Russia. So
Uh-huh.
basically they used to say that in one of those seven doors, if you follow it enough, it's a tunnel into Russia. So I think Indiana Jones would be remiss not to go there now and resurrect the movie. So who knows if it leads to Russia or no? I know some travelers from the US had gone to explore some of those, those doors and those caves to see where they led. But I'll let the readers find out when they go, where does it lead, and they'll have to come back and tell us. And the second, or I guess the third thing that I learned, which I actually thought it was a myth, but then I thought, well, of course it's not a myth. It has to be true. I think Srinagar has the only floating post office in the world. I think it's the only one. They've got actually a
A
big boat that's a
floating,
post office. Huh?
a
So with the
floating
shikaras,
one.
you can
Oh,
go and you
so
can give your letter and mail it. I mean, it's romance. Like imagine I'm taking my
absolute.
shikara and going and posting a letter. So I love
My God.
Kashmir. I love the people of Kashmir. And this is my tribute to a place that's had a lot of difficulty, and my love and best wishes and healing for everyone who's there. I am a Delhi girl who is and has always been in love with all of India, but Kashmir has been my obsession for many, many years because of just such happy, beautiful memories. My college roommate, I had two roommates. One was Muslim from Kashmir, Nuzhat Ara, and one was a Kashmiri Pandit, Archana Pandit. And so just lots of lovely memories of friends from there, everything that they stand for, the food. I mean, the Vazwan could give any Michelin star a run for their money. I have to
Absolutely.
end with food because I'm a food writer. But I love India. It's like my kids tease me, it's like it's becoming an obsession, mom. And it's like, well, that's
You
true.
can take the girl out of India. You can't take India out of the girl.
Never, never. And thank you, God, for that.
Thank you, God, and thank you to everyone watching. This has been a delightful conversation from the love of food to the love of dad who makes amazing food to, getting a hug from a city which from New York then becomes DC. That description's never going to leave my head. And finally, to this beautiful tribute to Kashmir. I think, yes, this conversation has given me a lot of sukoon. Go check out her website. The link will be in the description. And thank you for joining us with this exciting, insider peek into Monica's brain for Travel Secrets. It's been a pleasure, Monica. Thank you for your time.
And thank you so much for speaking to me. This has been wonderful, and I look forward to hearing what the readers have to say when they start exploring.
Thank you.